here we go. Spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of El Dorado, we have the Chinese Terran player, the Red Terran, representing Weibo Gaming, WBG. It is Oliveira. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have its opponent. We have the Blue Zerg player. The Blue Zerg representing Team Falcons. It is Rogue. Let's go. Trigger peaked 6.7k in EU last year. Yeah, Trigger, again, to reiterate, he has been in Korea for the past, I want to say 6 or 7 months. I think we're nearing 7 months at this point. But Trigger, he has been in Korea for a lot of this year, and as a result, he has been improving a lot. Like, his rate of improvement has skyrocketed this year thanks to his time practicing in Korea. For those that are unaware, Trigger, he went to Korea at the same time as Clem and at the same time as Estrella. Basically, in the month preceding Esports World Cup, so in the month before Esports World Cup, all the NA boys, specifically Estrella, Trigger, and Future, alongside Clem, as Clem, he was adopted by the NA players. He was taken in. They all rented an Airbnb together, and they all spent time in Korea practicing, getting ready for Esports World Cup. Obviously, that led into Clem becoming the champion. Like, he became the world champion off of that. So really, really nice team house environment was kind of constructed in Korea for that. And likewise, all the other players did improve, Estrella and Trigger alike. All the other players did return to their own home countries, but Trigger, he stayed behind. No, like the full Christmas story, you know, Kevin, Trigger, he was left behind in the Airbnb, and he's been there ever since. So he has been, of course, practicing and improving quite a lot in Korea, and I think he might be coming back soon. I know he's thinking about it. He's been streaming recently, and he's thinking about like when and if he should return at some point. I don't know how long his visa is. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see when and if Trigger does come back to the land of Canada. For now, staying in Korea. Now he's staying in. Meanwhile, economic opener out of Oliveira going for a Rax expand. Meanwhile, big shout to Cyan in the chat. Obrigado. Fala galera. Thank you so much for the raid. Hope you had a great stream. Hope you had a great ladder session. Hope you had a great time. And welcome one and all to the OlimoLeague December Finals. We're here in the final quarterfinals match here of the night. We've been wrapping up a lot of really strong matches. I do recommend checking out the VODs for some of those PvPs and PvZs alike. Again, some very high quality gameplay and just very entertaining matches overall. And now we're here with the final quarterfinals. We're here to determine the final player to make it to the semis to face off against Trigger. Oh boy. For now, third CC before Starport, economic build here by Oliveira. So far, so good. Likewise, Rogue, Hatch Gas Pool. Talking about the games, talking about the players here, I should emphasize as well, is that Rogue has been very much so a little bit one note in this matchup. We've seen more often than not, Rogue, he is one to play more defensively, get up to a 3, 4, 5 base economy, tech up into Hive, and get into Lurker tech. And it isn't really until he embraces Lurker tech that he's able to be active on the map and be assertive. That's at least typically the case. There are, of course, exceptions for Rogue. You know, every now and then does go into Roach aggression or goes quite heavy on Ling Bane. But for the most part, his goal is to get into Lurker tech and get into that late game. That's typically his playstyle. Ooh, but important that we pointed out those Roaches earlier, because that is going to be an early Roach warren out of Rogue. Okay. This might be for an early Roach move out, early Roach timing. So far, Oliveira has yet to confirm what's going on. Rogue, I believe he did skip Link Speed. Yeah, Link Speed was not researched. And we'll see how committed Rogue is going to be. We'll see if this is just a defensive opener just to make a handful of Roaches to saturate the third, or if he intends to be aggressive with this. As Ling Heli does poke in. Oliveira, he does poke in. Doesn't quite commit. To have Oliveira now taking his third, going for the gold. Let's go. Is going for the gold expansion. Likewise, Rogue, he's taking, which means there shouldn't be a committed Roach move out. So, as you mentioned before, this could be one of two things, either a Roach all-in or just a safe opener, and it's safe. You know, we see 4 Roaches here out of Rogue. Oh, looks like there was a bit of a pause. But Rogue, he's going to be saturating his bases, getting a 3rd, and soon to be getting a 4th base as well. So again, Rogue, he's just building up, getting into a longer game state. Oliveira's poking in. He has spotted the Roaches. He's aware. And behind this, getting into his own Banshee production alongside Stim. Wait, what? Interesting. You don't often see that. There we go. There's a cancel. I was about to say that you don't often see that kind of setup here. Rogue going for the ninja base. Okay. Okay, you have my attention. Let's go, papi, let's go. Rogue going for a hidden base here towards the top right-hand corner of the map. Upon realizing that Oliveira is expanding towards the south, this is a very cheeky base, and I do like it actually, because what are the chances that Oliveira scouts in this direction? Like Oliveira, he's going to be focusing on top left and bottom left, not top right. And again, if he was expanding this direction, it'd be a different story, but he isn't. He's expanding towards the south instead. So very cheeky expansion here from Rogue. Hellions, they poke in, they are denied. Are going to be denied. Oliveira pulling away. Ooh, getting into an... Yeah, he's getting into an 8-Rax. I mean, this makes sense, especially with the goal base. This is a strong map for an 8-Rax. Oh boy, so this looks like a 3-base all-in out of Oliveira. Ideally, you don't want to throw these Hellions away. You can morph them into Hellbats to support the Bio Army. But this is a very aggressive build. Essentially, it makes sense. So because there's no gases here at the 3rd location, you can't really afford like a 2nd factory and additional tank production. We shouldn't really be seeing any add-ons here. We shouldn't really be seeing a 4th CC. But we'll keep an eye on Oliveira to see if he does commit. And he should be. Yeah, Armory is now on the way for 2-2. Oliveira is building up, and he will soon pull the trigger. Back at home, Rogue is now taking. As we mentioned, Rogue, he's typically working towards Lurker tech, so Hive is on the way. Hydrogen, I believe, did just complete. Yep, Hydrogen is done. Infestation bit into the Lurker den, and the question becomes, I mean, typically the win condition here for Rogue is to get into a high Lurker count, but can he get there? Because Oliveira, he's making 10 Marines at a time. And we mentioned it, this is a 3-base all-in. So it's going to be an A-Rax 3-base all-in. I say that there is a 4th CC on the way, so never mind. Oliveira, he does have a contingency plan, but he still has a terrifying Bio Army, and he's pushing. He's going to be pushing. We'll see if he reinforces with these tanks. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the 2nd wave. As for now, Oliveira, he's just poking. He's just poking forward. The longer this game goes on, the better it's going to be for Rogue, because he's that much closer here to the Lurkers, so he needs a little bit more time. As the Lurker Den is almost done. Oliveira now up to 4, soon to be 5 tanks. So he's still waiting a little bit longer here to pull the trigger. Rogue taking the gases. Viper production has begun. The Lurker Den has been spotted. Now Oliveira knows. And now he pulls a trigger. Yeah, he sees the would-be Lurkers. He's like, okay, I should try to kill you before Lurkers really build up. And this is it. This is Oliveira's moment. He is up in army supply. 2-2 is on the way. Again, this is a terrifying push. And this is designed to kill. There is a 4th base behind this, but again, like, this is meant to trade well and ideally break down the base. Scans ahead of time. There are 2 Lurkers. And so far, does try to commit in. Yeah, nice target firing. He does get one of the Lurkers. There's 3 more behind this. Oliveira is going for the kill. He has to push in a little bit further towards that natural. Vipers are gathering energy. Nice spread here on the tanks. Oh, Viper goes down. No blinding cloud. No blinding cloud whatsoever. And Oliveira is pushing through. Nice abduction. Gets one of the tanks. But Oliveira is pushing towards the natural. And Rogue, he can't rotate. He cannot rotate into the natural base. He's just being cut off from his own expansion. Trying to push forward. Massive scan here on the Lurkers. Lurkers going down. And GG gets called. Oliveira, he goes for the kill move, and he will take game number 1. GG. GG, well played. Again, it was an A-Rax out of Oliveira. Again, under normal circumstances, I don't think Oliveira would have gotten a 4th CC. I don't think it was necessary, but just went straight for the push, straight for the all-in. And again, this was striking just before Rogue had gotten into critical mass of Lurkers. He had initially 2, then up to 5 lurkers, but they were a little bit too far behind. They weren't quite in position. He barely didn't have enough time to build up his lurker count to defend that area just outside of the natural. We saw that once Oliveira got there, once he took control of the ramp, took control of the game, GG. GG, well played. Again, very strong execution of that ARAX from Oliveira. And now we're getting into game number 2. Let's go. Let us go. As we are going to be settling in to our next game. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of King's Cove, we have our South Korean Zerg player, the Blue Zerg, representing Team Falcons down in the series. We'll see if he can bounce back. It is Rogue. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Chinese Terran player, the Red Terran, representing Weibo Gaming, WBG, leading the series 1-0. It is Oliveira. Let's go. And again, Oliveira was pretty committed with that move out. As a reminder, he didn't have any gases at the 3rd because there were none existing. There were no gases at the 4th base. There was no second factory. There was no tech into ghost production or anything like that. It was just purely making 10 Marines at a time with, of course, that 5 tank support. And that was enough to break Rogue. Unfortunately, Rogue wasn't quite necessarily able to determine what was coming his way either. Wasn't quite ready for it. But now we're getting into game 2. Here we go. Getting into game 2. Here on King's Cove, we expect another economic opener. King's Cove is a larger map compared to El Dorado. Because of that, an 8-Rax is not going to be as effective. Something that we did mention in the last game, and we should emphasize once again, is that El Dorado, because of the short rush distance by ground, that is why 8-Raxes can be very powerful. They can be very strong. Meanwhile, what the hell's going on? Wait, what? Rogue. Okay. Oh, a little bit paranoid. I was very confused. Drone scouting is very unorthodox. So I was like, are we going for like the linear 3rd? Is he that crazy? He's scouting for proxies. So he's scouting for proxies. We'll take a 3rd base. This is a bit of an inefficient start out of Rogue, but clearly Oliveira has done some nasty things to him in the past. Like, clearly Oliveira has cheesed the hell out of Rogue. And on top of that, ooh, gasless opener. Okay, now there's more reasonings for this. Okay. So, it is a gasless build, so very greedy build here by Rogue. Now the drone scout makes more sense because he is more vulnerable because there's no gas, no roaches, no link speed, no banelings, no nothing. So scouting is that much more important. Meanwhile, Marine first out of Oliveira. He's hunting down the Overlord. Can he get it? The Overlord up, barely will survive, just barely on 10 HP. Whew. Just barely lives. With that, we can just lift the Rax though. The Rax can lift and the Overlord should go down. So a nice pick off here from Oliveira, as he's going to be going for the add-on swap. Meanwhile, to winding back a little bit once again, there are certain maps where a gasless opener is more viable. El Dorado was one of them. El Dorado is a viable map to go into a gasless opener. This is one as well. The reason for this is because of how defendable it is on 3 bases. A very narrow choke point coming into the natural, and likewise a ramp coming into the 3rd as well. So it is relatively easy to just fully wall off here with like 2 queens or some stack defense or some buildings, and likewise defend your 3rd base with purely slow links and queens. The downside of this kind of build is that link speed is heavily delayed, and Terran players can try to punish you with Hellions. Because you have no link speed, they can pull you apart, especially on larger maps. But on a map like King's Cove, and you can see here, because of how defendable it is, again, you just throw down the Roach Warren, you have 1 queen in position, and your natural is completely safe. Likewise, the 3rd base also very easy to defend when you only have to focus on 1 location. So this is a map where you can get away with gasless openers. This is just a bit of a PSA for the chat. If you're out there, if you're like, oh, I want to play gasless, it's very map dependent. You know, maps like El Dorado, maps like King's Cove. I want to say Abyssal Reef is another one where you can go gasless, and Neon Violet Square as well. Neon Violet Square. Meanwhile, there are other maps where you can't. Like, there's no shot you can get away with going gasless on Frostline or on, I almost said Amygdala. I guess Amygdala as well. Amygdala and Whispers of Gold. Like that, those are very difficult maps to get away with this kind of gasless opener. Very difficult. Not here though. So Rogue is cutting corners, throwing down his spores. We can see Oliveira behind this getting to his bio, not mech or anything too crazy. Likewise, the Overlord did eventually get hunted down with the arrival of the medevac. Ooh, and we do have an earlier move out here with these earlier Marines. So 3 Hellies, a handful of Marines, they do poke in, but alas, Roaches, they arrive just in time, and Rogue defends. I should have also mentioned as well when I brought up the Roach Warren, but when you go gasless, usually it is without any Lings, with Roaches instead. But Hellies, they get into the mineral line. The Queen was out of position. Yeah, Queen was out of position. This should not have happened. Drones are going down. They're getting roasted. There's going to be 5, going to be 6 drone kills. Oh, can they get 6? Barely. 6 workers do go down. That should not have happened. The Queen was not quite where it should have been. And Oliveira, he continues with his harass, but he should be deflected. Oh, the medevac. Ooh, medevac goes down. Very nice pickoff. That does make up for the lost 6 drones. Okay. We're in this. that helps make up for it, as that was a full medevac going down. And now we can settle in. Oliveira getting his 3rd CC, getting into a 3-rack setup, back at home, Rogue getting into Roaches. Now, we can go in 2 different directions here. Rogue, he could go Roach into Ling Bane Roach Ravager in the mid game, or he can go Roach into Roach Hydra Lurker. Now, I mentioned before that Rogue, his goal here in ZvT typically is Mass Lurker. That's usually his go-to. We saw him attempt to get there in game 1. I'm leaning towards that here in game 2. We'll see if he does get into +1 range. That's what we're looking for. +1 range here with the Evo Chambers into a Hydra Den into Lurkers. So we'll see if that's the case from Rogue. Meanwhile, Oliveira going to be floating over, taking his 3rd. And moving out across the map with his Bio Army. Has the 1 Banshee. Getting into stim, getting into +1. There it is, +1 range. So it is going to be +1 range. This is looking like into Lurker tech. There's the Infestation Pit into a faster Hive. We should soon be seeing a Hydra Den as well. Technically, we could head in a different direction. If we were up against Mech, this could be like into Swarm Host, for example. But Swarm Host is a very niche style against Fire, and I don't really expect that here. Technically, is an option, but an unlikely option. There it is, Hydra Den. So we were just waiting for the Hydra Den. Hydra Den has been placed, so it is into Lurker tech. And once again, the goal for Rogue is survive until Lurkers. Can he survive? This time we have extra gases at the 3rd. This time we have a 2nd factory. So this time we should not be seeing as aggressive of a move out from Oliveira that we saw in the previous game. This time it's more macro. This time we're teching extra gases, extra factories, 4 CC, extra CCs, and less Raxes. Less Raxes from Oliveira, so much more macro oriented. He's building up towards a longer game state, which means Rogue should get away with this Hive tech. He should get away with the Lurkers. This time there's not going to be that strong timing. So strap yourselves in. We're getting into a longer game. Getting into a longer game state. I appreciate the safety link speed on the way. Eventually you want to stop Roach production and you want to support the army with Ling Bane. Eventually. Hive is halfway done. No Lurker Den yet. Ideally we do want it a little bit earlier so we can start the upgrades. Oh wait, no, my apologies. I missed it, but there it is. Lurker Den is halfway done. To start those upgrades. You see Rogue trading out some Roaches. Building up Hydras. And Oliveira doesn't really have much pushing power, so he can't really chase. He has to back off, build up. 3 more racks is on the way. Now he's getting into its 8-rack setup after the 4th. Bold's move to go for the orbital, not for the planetary, especially considering how exposed this location is. So Bold's move here out of Oliveira, just cutting corners, being greedy. So very greedy play here by Oliveira, throwing down his own depots. As you mentioned, I should also emphasize here, one of the big features of King's Cove, very defendable in 3 bases, but the 4th base is wide open. The 4th base can be attacked from almost a 360 surround, which is why it's imperative here that Oliveira walls up. He has to wall up this location to help protect these tanks. So the depots, they do help with that. As Oliveira is being active with the drops. Meanwhile, upgrades are finishing up, and we should soon be able to embrace the mass Lunkers. The Lunkers, papi, they're coming. And there they are. 5 more Lurkers on the way. That's going to be 9 Lurkers in total. Additional Evo Chambers, that's just to, of course, support the Vipers. 2 twos on the way as well. And typically Rogue's go-to, once he's able to max out with Mass Lurker, is Nidus play. To get away with Nidus Worms. As someone mentioned earlier about how inspired they were from Rogue because of his Mass Overseer style, that's kind of the style we're headed towards. You know, Mass Overseer, Mass Changeling, Mass Nidus Worms. To eventually pull apart the Terran player. Rogue is still building up and getting there. There we go, 7 Overseers on the way. Now, I mentioned before, though, that this is a style that Rogue has been heavily reliant on, and as a result, initially when he first whipped this out, it did catch a lot of Terran players off guard, specifically, of course, Clem and Bjorn, but it's been a couple of months. It's been a couple of months, and now Terran players are a lot more wise to it, they're a lot more aware, and a lot more careful about scouting and about shutting them down. As Oliveira's going for a split push. Shaving off Lings. A lot of Lings are going down. Likewise, tank blow is going off here on the Lurkers. Oliveira being proactive. Nidus Worms are not ready yet. And so far, Oliveira doing a good job here at denying some creep on the right-hand side. Rotating towards the left. You're just clearing up more creep. There we go. Double Nidus on the way. Rogue still needs a little bit more time. And these center bases are that much more exposed here. He's going to try and dive in. Powerbomb on the Vikings. Again, typically we don't really see Vikings in this kind of game state here, but against all these Overseers, they make more sense. Not just the Overseers, the Vipers as well. Nice split. At the same time, Roach Raptor does go for a counterattack. Denies the 5th, just barely. Ooh, forces a big cancel. 5th base was almost done. There we go. Nidus into the main. And Oliveira's turning back around. Does turn around, has to fall back to defend against the Roaches. Likewise, Nidus Worms are going to finish. Uh-oh. They are going to finish up. Oliveira out of position, did not notice it, did not react in time. He's pushing in. He does spot the Lurkers, and the production's under fire. Again, this is like the signature Rogue maneuver. Go for the Lurkers into the main. But that is a terrifying tank. Oh my god, how many tanks are there? 12! Now 11. That's insane. And meanwhile, the Liberators have arrived. There's Freedom. Yeah, Freedom just in time. Nice snipes here. The Lurkers are going to be completely cleaned up. Oliveira, he defends back at home, and he's breaking through. Again, we did mention earlier that Oliveira did get an earlier second factory. Only two factories, but he's been slowly building up and prioritizing tank production. He's making 2 tanks at a time, and he's not stopping. And again, that's what you want against Hydra Lurker. Is just mass tank. Against Ling Bane Muta, you know, that's when you have Widow Mines instead. Nice showing here on 1 tank, but the tanks, they're going to be able to just bully back the Lurkers. Good abductions though. Abductions popping off. Meanwhile, Ling run by here into the mineral line. Remember, no planetary at the 4th, which means SCVs are going down. So good punishment here by Rogue. Punishing the greed of Oliveira, but the bases are falling. Rogue, he lost his 5th on the right, now the 4th on the left. Lurkers, they dive in. Massive attempted dive here from Rogue. Takes down 3 tanks. Not bad. Getting a 4th tank, getting a 5th tank as well. A 6th tank. Yeah, it does reset that tank count. He breaks out, but Rogue did lose 2 bases. Thankfully, behind this, he's still on 5. He's on a decent economy here, a decent worker count. On 5 bases. Well, the Nidus Swarms were shut down, and no more Niduses. The Nidus Swarms are being rebuilt. Rogue, he's stabilizing. Likewise, so is Oliveira. Jesus, so many orbiters. What is the planetary? What is... There we go. We have a planetary as the 5th base, thankfully. Oliveira, he is somewhat sensible. Getting 1 planetary. Likewise, Lurkers pushing in. Ooh, we'll take down 1 of the orbitals. Oh my god, so much damage dealt. 1 orbital goes down, no lifts. 2nd orbital goes down as well. Nidus Swarm is done to evacuate. The Ghost Cannon is building up Oliveira. Is building up his ghosts. Changelings, they're waddling in. They're getting into the main. And Rogue, because he has a Nidus Swarm here on the front lines, he can go from the front line straight into the main base. But this time Oliveira, he notices. This time he does notice. He's going to shut down the Nidus. Nidus into the natural. Oh my god, snipes moving up. That was, I believe, 3 to 4 Lurkers going down. And Oliveira going for a big counterattack here. Does come across a fresh base. Nidus kind of finishes, but only 3, 4. Oh my god, Jesus. The unload is crazy. Lurkers, they do get into the natural. Just barely. Another best trades, but 14 SBs going down at the same time. Oliveira does take down an expansion, but there are Lurkers that defend. And Oliveira, he just runs into a meat grinder. Lurkers, they defend back at home, they attack across the map. 19 SCV kills, but the snipes are brutal. And Oliveira, he will clean this up. Now, on the one hand, Oliveira, yes, he has lost 20 SCVs. That is true. He also lost 2 orbitals. I was going to say that he can afford those losses because he has mules, but losing 2 orbital bases, that does eat into his overall mule production as well. So his economy is hurting. Likewise, his army is still strong, but his economy is something that he does have to fall back on, does have to focus on as well to maintain himself. So he has to calm down. Breaking out. Rogue does have some momentum. Double Nidus into the main. Trying to catch out the ghost. No, the ghost. Oh my god, it looks like they will barely sim away. 1 ghost goes down, 2 ghosts go down. And nice abductions here on the tanks. And Rogue just pulling Oliveira apart. Takes down the tank line. Takes down some of the ghosts. Nidus rooms, they finish. Lurkers into the main. And again, Rogue, he has found his stride. He's going to be cleaned up in the main base. Will lose these Lurkers, but he does drag the army out of position. Forcing out another scan. Pushing into the 4th. Oh. Going for another orbital. That's another base going down. And again, that much less mules. And Oliveira just can't quite push in. Lurkers probably going for the mineral line, getting more SCVs. Does pull away. Nice snipes here on the Lurkers. Snipes, they do pop off. Oliveira, he's holding. He's holding his own, looking at the units tab. 11 ghosts so far. 11 ghosts. Rogue, likewise, able to re-expand. 90 drones. Hi, hi, hi. Does have an economy. Still trying to build back up, though. Oliveira expanding towards his opponent, towards Rogue. And both players are maxing out. Bearing in mind, because Rogue, every time he Niduses into the main, he has been losing all those Lurkers. Because of that, that's why Rogue has no bank. Like, Rogue, he's been actually spending quite a lot of resources rebuilding all those Lurkers. So this is still quite close. Nidus runs are denied. So despite Rogue having 89 drones, he hasn't really been able to build up a comfortable kind of bank that he can fall back on to try to be a little bit inefficient with his trades and build back up. Just hasn't been possible. Being run by does take down one of the tanks. Slips into the mineral line. Whereas Lurker's getting caught out on the right. Nice spread. Oh, good Jesus. Nice spread here by Oliveira. Yeah, takes down every single Lurker. Will lose some Marauders, but not the Ghosts. The Ghosts survive. Oh my god, but meanwhile, massive counterattack. The base is gonna fall. 21 SCV kills. Jesus. And Oliveira, as he's forced to respond, and Nidus into the natural. And he's going all in. Yeah, he's had enough. He's had enough defending. He's had it up to here with Rogue. Going for a massive all in. Nice snipes. He's breaking through. Nice room gets shut down. Oliveira is down to 34 workers. Lurkers getting in position. Looks like there was a bit of a pause. Snipe's going to be going up. Snipes so far, they're solid here on the Lurkers. And Oliveira, he will take down the expansion, will take down the base. Did any Vipers survive? No Vipers. No Vipers left for Rogue, but he does have 15 Hydras on the way. Meanwhile, Oliveira slowly pushing in, does have the supply lead, the army supply lead. Snipes once again. Nice pickups there on the Liberators. Liberators did overextend. Rogue is going to try to break out. Yeah, lunges forward. Takes down 2 tanks with the tank shells. They're brutal. Yeah, the Hydra count is reset. Lurkers are exposed. Do we have any snipes left over? We do. Yeah, it looks like Oliveira, he breaks through the defensive line, takes down every single Hydra, every single Lurker. And Rogue, he barely doesn't have enough to hold on. And sure, Oliveira, he might not have an economy, but he doesn't care. Like, he's all in anyway. And Rogue, his army supply is just, it's barely there. He has mainly drones. And again, Rogue, he did not have a bank. Did not have a bank, did not have a large enough economy, or did not preserve his economy, I should emphasize. And with that, Oliveira, he does it. He breaks out. GG gets called, and Oliveira forced into the all-in. He snowballs out of control. Takes down Rogue 2-0. GG. GG, well played, Oliveira. He does take it again, as we were trying to emphasize before. Rogue, even though he was getting a lot of Nidus Worms off, again, these were expensive trades from Rogue, where he was just throwing away so many lurkers. Because of that, he was just always kind of treading water when it came to spending his resources and building up his army. In the end, he did force the all-in, but Oliveira, he had just a terrifying tank count, ghost count, liberator count as well. Had a very efficient army, and did break through in the end. GG, well played. Whew. Again, a very intense game. Honestly, it was looking like we were going to see an ace match. It was looking like we were going to see a game 3. Like, Rogue, he was being quite successful with his harassment, especially towards the end, especially killing SCVs. But, you know, at a certain point, Oliveira, he had enough. He had enough, Pappy. Just went for the all-in. He sent it. And with that, Oliveira does take it, and Oliveira will advance on to the semis. Congratulations. Congratulations. Oliveira does take it, and now we can take a moment here to have a look at the bracket and figure out where we are and where we're headed. Here we go. As we switch our scenes over, the quarterfinals has concluded, and we have our top 4. We have our top 4 players of the month of December. We have Shin taking down Hero 2-1. Was a very intense back and forth between the two of them. We had Creator taking down Trap, so we have the upper semifinals. It's going to be a best of 5 between Shin and Creator. Oh boy. It is going to be that best of 5. Likewise, we also have a Trigger. Trigger, he's been popping up in the PvPs. I did say earlier that I do believe that Trigger, his best matchup currently is the PvP matchup. Did take down Classic, and now he's up against Oliveira in that lower semifinals. 2 Protoss, 1 Zerg, 1 Terran. Nice race distribution here between our players, between our races here. Do love to see it. And we'll see who's able to make it on and advance on into the grand finals. Let's go. Was it all Lingbane openers from Rogue? No, not at all. Neither in game 1 or game 2. So again, Rogue, he did open Roach in both games. In both games, did open Roach. He often does not open Lingbane. Just catching up in the chat. I'm not sure I like the Lurker style against Terran. The Lurker style is very much so dependent on pulling the Terran player apart with Nidus Worms. As we saw, ideally you're able to distract the Terran player, cause a lot of havoc, cause a lot of chaos, get on top of the production, get into mineral lines, but for the most part, Oliveira, he was responding well. He was responding well. Even when some of the Nidus Worms did finish, he was able to minimize losses and shut them down. And again, punish kind of the Lurker commitment from Rogue. Is important to point out that we have seen Rogue pull apart players like Clem and like Beyond in the past, but as I was mentioning before in the lead up to this game, is that this is a style that Rogue has been sticking with for a couple of months at this point. It is just, it's almost all that he does in this matchup is, you know, rush into Lurkers, into Lurker Nidus, and because of that, over the past couple of months, players have been adapting. Terran players that have been getting used to it more and more, used to defending, used to scouting, used to responding, and used to just minimizing losses like this. It is one of those things where if a certain style or a certain build gets popular or gets trendy, then, I mean, obviously, you know, players adapt to that, and the meta evolves, the meta does kind of go back and forth. Personally, I do think that's one of the reasons why none of the other Zerg players have adopted this style, even though Rogue, he popped off, was it Star Zagora? It was either Star Zagora or it was the Big Lulu Cup, the event that he did this against Clem on. Despite Rogue popping off and taking Clem down in that tournament, you know, Dark, Shin, Raynor, Serral, the other Solar, the other top Zerg players, they didn't really follow Rogue, which is interesting, right? Like they're like, oh, that's cool. And then they just keep doing their own thing. Like they looked over at Rogue. They were like, oh, that's like a really cool style that he's doing. We'll let him do that. We'll do what we do. And they've been playing more meta, more standard instead. Rogue style hasn't really caught on amongst the other pro players. And again, as I mentioned, like opposing Terrans have been getting better and better when it comes to defending against it. I mean, that's StarCraft for you. That's StarCraft. It's catching up. Here we go. He was making an orbital to lift it. I would have brought that up, but the problem was that we saw a lot of orbitals die anyway without being lifted. So, so I even though I understand, I definitely understand the sentiment there and the rationale behind it, 100%. Unfortunately, that's not what we were seeing. Like Oliveira, he was losing a lot of his orbitals. A lot of orbitals were going down to the lurkers. I mean, despite that, didn't matter, right? Like, yes, he could sustain those losses, but yeah, it was brutal seeing so many orbitals fall to the lurkers. It was brutal. Here we go. Just catching up in the chat. Also, calm down in the chat. I know what's going on. Do you think it'd be a good idea to reduce the vision of the minor units? Not at all. I don't think there's anything calling for reduced vision. I mean, I feel like that would negatively impact like early game scouting as well, especially when it comes to other matchups. Less so ZvT, but more so the others. Also, I see Dan in the chat. I think you have like a burner account anyway. Watch yourself when it comes to balance whining and complaining. Respect the players, obviously. Respect the players. Oliveira has been playing very well as of late. We've been seeing Oliveira take down players like Hero, take down Dark, specifically in these big show matches, especially in the Chinese scene. Unfortunately, we haven't had the luxury of casting them, but Oliveira is very much so in form. Like, Oliveira is straight up one of the best Terrans in the world right now. I'd probably say Oliveira maybe top 3. I think I rate Oliveira higher than Bjorn and Cure at the moment. It's pretty good. I guess time is getting better, or Rogue was a bit off. As I mentioned, Oliveira, he's like taken down all the big players like recently. Like he's very strong. Unfortunately, it's one of those things where some people might underrate Oliveira just because he's less active. Like Oliveira, for example, he doesn't really play in a lot of online open cups, right? He doesn't play in like the Wardy events, or he of course he wasn't at Home Story Cup. He wasn't at Home Story Cup. Doesn't play in the Wardy events. There's a lot of tournaments that he doesn't play in, but which is why I'm looking forward to Masters Coliseum, because that is a big event that he is playing in, that he is competing in. And Oliveira, he does play in OlimoLeagues, of course, every now and then, and he's really good. Again, I would say Oliveira's probably like top 3 Terran right now. Maybe I would say probably Oliveira under Clem and under Maru, but he's very much so in form. Very much so. But yeah, Dan, watch yourself in the chat. Stop crying. Jesus. Cry somewhere else. It's gonna be your first warning. As from here, we can settle in. We're going to be going on a short break. We're going to be going on a short break before the semifinals. And from there, we'll be getting into the semis, then the grand finals as well. So take this time, get some snacks, get some food, get some water, take a break. And when we come back, we will have the second half and the remainder of the tournament. See you soon. See you soon.